All right, so I know when you're holding a stock, especially when it's declining, it can feel like an eternity. But can someone please confirm to me, has it been 5 years already? Because according to Kathy Wood and ARK Invest, they invest with a 5 year time horizon. Okay, we've heard Miss Kathy Wood say it all the time. But here we are today. They have dumped 3.8 million shares of Palantir stock today. Okay, so post Q4 earnings. This is in their ARKK fund. And if you scroll down, it's been an absolute complete selling spree. They must have not been happy with Q4 earnings. So ARKQ, they sold 382,000 shares. In ARKW, they sold 470,000 shares. A complete panic sell from ARK Invest of Palantir stock. ARKG, that's their genomics, no Palantir in there. But ARKF, they sold 10,000 Palantir shares. In ARKX, they sold 74,000 shares. So if you take a look at their recent history, the purple dots represent their cost average. The brown or gold represents the share price. And the blue line represents the amount of shares that they purchased. Okay, so but there's been a common theme quite recently, okay, towards the end of 2021. As soon as the stock price dropped below their average, they began selling, okay? So essentially, they've been buying high and selling low. And as you can see here, their share ownership dropped as we touched $18, and it dropped even further the lower the stock went. We did see a bump in purchasing in early January as the share price approached $16. But as you can see here today, an absolute dump of over 3.8 million shares. That's just in the ARKK fund. And they're just continuing with their tradition of buying high and selling low. Again, remind me, pinch me, somebody. Has it been 5 years yet? You know, a complete fire sale of Palantir stock. Now, it makes you wonder, like, was earnings really that bad? And in my opinion, I would say earnings were in line, okay? I wouldn't say Palantir's earnings were great. I wouldn't say they knocked it out of the park. For me personally, I felt that earnings was in line, okay? Now, if you look at the total revenue, it grew 34% year over year to $433 million, which is exactly in line with what Alex Karp says. He has said many times in the past that he expects 30% growth plus for the next foreseeable future, okay? So they delivered, okay, 34% year over year. Commercial revenue grew 47% year over year. Now, this is really where we want to see the majority of our growth, okay? Because the government revenue, in my opinion, is capped, all right? There is a ceiling. But with commercial revenue, that is where we have the much wider TAM. And that, for me, as a Palantir shareholder, is more important. I want to see commercial revenue grow, and they grew at 47%. So exceeding expectations year over year. Now, some of the gripes that I've seen online is that government revenue grew only 26% year over year. Again, people were expecting 30% plus growth in government revenue. And there was a question that was asked by Brent Till during the earnings call. He says, and just a quick follow up on the government. I know you had a tough comp. It did decelerate pretty materially in Q1 in terms of the growth. Can you give us your perspective on what's happening on the government side? Okay, so the CEO answered the question in two parts. He mentioned that there's a scientific, pretty much, perspective to how to answer this question, and also there's a lumpiness perspective, as you can see here. But what he essentially did in the first part of answering the question is he re-emphasized the importance of the government revenue, which is reliable, the sums are big, and the quality of the revenue is very high. They said because of this, there are a number of problems, all right? But the biggest problem is the barrier to entry, which they've clearly solved, and then re-barriers to entry, which they've also solved, okay? But that's going very well. Essentially, the first part of the answer is that there's some barriers to entries, which they've obviously solved, but that's one of the reasons for the slowdown in government revenue, okay? The second one he describes as lumpiness. He said that we have some small deals, but he pretty much says that the biggest and most important parts of the US government is pretty much on their software, okay? So, and he concluded that the baseline is 30, and he asked a question like, how do we get there? You know, like we were at the beginning of last year. And he concluded that we are already positioned to win these contracts. And he kind of gave us some more hints here, asking the question that who gets the deals if there's no new budget. Okay, so I think with that last line there, he gave us a lot of hints as to what is going on in the US government right now. You have to remember midterms are on its way, so perhaps there's no new budget right now, and that's probably behind why we've seen a slight decline in the government revenue. There's so much else going on with the government right now that there might not be any renewed budgets for all contracts for Palantir to bid for. And of course, when you're comparing comps from a year over year perspective, it doesn't look good. Okay, so maybe that's why they sold. If your investment time horizon is 5 years, this isn't bad at all, in my opinion. So again, I can't wrap my head around why this might be one of the reasons why Cathie Wood and ARK Invest sold. I mean, if you're going off analyst expectations, they pretty much missed EPS by 2 cents, okay? They missed by 2 cents, but beat on revenue, okay? $438 million, which was a beat of 14.73 million. So again, it's just really, really strange. And again, I go back to the email. You can see that they were purchasing more Roku. Okay, they bought more Roku, they bought more Zoom, they bought more Roblox. It's dumbfounded. Okay, it just doesn't make sense, because if you look at Roku's earnings, Roku also had a miss. I mean, they beat on the GAAP EPS by 17 cents, but they missed on revenue. Top line missed by 33% year over year, which is a huge miss of $28.77 million. But I mean, why are we even comparing Roku? There's nothing innovative about Roku, okay? They're a streaming platform, and that's it. Zoom, what really is innovative about the platform? I'm still trying to wrap my head around why why there's any difference between Zoom and, Microsoft Teams and other video conferencing platforms out there currently. And Zoom's earnings, I believe, is next week, okay? So I think Zoom, if you thought Palantir had difficult comps, Zoom probably has one of the worst comps going into Q4 than any other company besides Peloton, all right? So, and we saw what happened to Peloton. So purchasing Roku, Zoom, and dumping 3.8 million shares of Palantir because they missed government revenue, or they delivered 26% as opposed to 30%, it just doesn't make sense to me. It's insane to me, makes absolutely no sense. And I just wanted to quickly put this on your radar. So if you get any value, please make sure you smash that like button. If you have any more insight into why Cathie Wood and ARK Invest are now beginning to panic sell Palantir post Q4 earnings, let me know in the comment section below if I missed something, because I'm just trying to make sense of this. It doesn't make sense. All right, I'll catch you next one. Peace.
Interesting to listen to the CEO. He was speaking our language. He essentially said to investors, we are playing in a massive space here, and we're going to invest aggressively now in order to capitalize on the exponential changes that are taking place here. So if you are short-term in your focus, you probably don't want to spend too much time investing in Palantir. So that's music to our ears, because, and we do believe more and more companies are going to start behaving in this way instead of catering to short-term time horizons.